trying to do is try to find some crappie under some docks. This is kind of a main channel part of the cove, and we got some very deep water here, and so not so worried about, you know, catching fish on the bottom. So a lot of times these fish will get up underneath these docks and just suspend. And this is a little pocket. It's a little ways from another dock, so that's another key to me. But a lot of times I want to look under docks that's kind of singled out by themselves a little bit, especially out here on this main channel at times. There could be a lot of fish underneath some of these docks like this. And this is the dock frame right here. Oh, here we go. And there's some crappie right there. You can see, I can tell way back in there that there's a bunch of crappie farther back in there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look around on the back side of this a little bit too. Those fish were so far back in there that it was a little hard to tell, but I will assure you that was a bunch of crappie. Whenever these fish get way back under docks, you know, you've got to get just a little bit closer to look at them. This dark area you see right here, that's 28 foot. That's how far it is from that icon of that boat to that side right there. So anything in between is going to be fish that's suspended. And look at that. Check this out. We just run over a whole bunch of crappie right here. That's a good one. They look pretty small, but there's a bunch of fish underneath there. There's a couple big ones laying around in there too. You can see them on the 2D because we got they come right on the edge of the dock too. I'm gonna back up here and look it over a little bit more. But this is a high potential dock to try to do a little dock shooting on. And you can also tell that some of these fish are on the outside of the dock, so it can be fished without getting under it. We're probably gonna try to line up a couple docks before we start fishing, just to see what all's real close by. Don't have to run very far if we run into more fish. There's another dock right down on this point coming out of a big cove. And anytime you're around docks, it's around a point or secondary points this time of year is potentially going to be good spots to look, because whenever the lake starts dropping, a lot of times these fish kind of look for secure water. And anytime you're fishing a point, it seems to be one of the best places that I'll start looking for fish, around a point, because you got secure water, because you got the point and then you got deep water on both sides. So they got access to deep water anytime they want it. And this dock's close to that point, so we're just going to go ahead and ease up here and look it over too. We know the dock behind us has got fish on it. And so if we find 2 docks in a row, we may have to stop and fish. And there's fish pretty much all across this one. Look at that. Check that out. That is a pile of fish. That's hundreds of fish. I'm hoping to see them on the outside of this dock. These are all cables coming off the dock, so that makes it a little bit tricky too, but there is a wad of fish right there. There's a lot of big schools of shad. Kind of a good mixture. I mean, we got the right spot, we got a lot of bait, and there's a lot of fish showing up around here. We'll give it a try. Again, we're talking about crappie that's kind of light sensitive, but we got the sun kind of up to the south of us here a little bit, so the way this dock's facing, we got the shade on this side of the dock, this side we're gonna try to fish, and the screen's just loaded with fish, but there's a lot of them under that dock. Now, if the wind would be blowing from the north, there'd probably be more fish coming out here, because fish face into the wind, and a lot of times what they're doing is they're taking anything that's blowing into them because of bait. I've watched fish before under docks where whatever direction the wind's blowing, that's the way they're gonna face. So we're gonna give it a try here. Got him that time. Pretty nice one. It's a black crappie. It's probably 11-inch black. They're a beautiful fish. I'm gonna put him off on this side. Here we go. I'm pretty much all the way to the back of that hoist. There's a hose back there, and I just had to stop short of it. Oh, he got me. once I get past where I think the fish are, I always just go ahead and reel up as quick as I can and get right back into the strike zone. There, get it. Another pretty nice one. A lot of meat on those kind. Got him in the top of the mouth. It's pretty tough. But look how thick those things are. This is where I used my split tail to get back in there a little bit farther. This is the minnow minder, and it seemed like it really slides good on top of the water. And there's a lot of times you want that bait to slide another 10, 15 feet. Got him. There's a white crappie. I went a little deeper that time. A lot of times the black crappie would be the shallower of the bite, and the white crappie would be deeper. And it seems to be true most of the time. A lot of times crappie will stack. You know, they may be anywhere from, like these fish showed up at 5 foot, and there's also some fish down at 15. So typically I try to pick off the top fish first. I don't want to catch the ones in the bottom because I'm bringing them up through those fish and possibly spooking them. So I always try to start shallow and then just work my way down. And right now I'm down about a 12 count, but I seem to be getting bit every time I get down there, so I'm going to stick with the 12. There are a lot of different opinions on dock shooting, what kind of rod you need. I personally like the 7-foot rod, or like this in 7.4. And the reason I like the longer rods is because I feel like I can shoot farther and sometimes more accurately with a longer rod. You know, I don't use a real wimpy type rod. Most of mine are almost bass size, you know, where they're fairly a stout rod, because I want to be able to put a lot of power on when I release that. I want that bait to skip and slide back in there a long way. So in my opinion, a 7-foot rod is hard to beat. This is 7.4, and I use this for shooting, and I use it for trying to dip in front of the live view. And it's such a lightweight rod that it seemed like it doesn't affect me. If it's a real heavy rod, you know, it kind of overbalances you, but they're a real light rod. They got a good balance to them, so I can kind of use this for a universal rod. I'm doing about a 12 count. I'm at about 1,006, 1,007, 1,008, 1,009, 1,010, 1,011, 1,012. When I get to 12, I give it a little pop. And a lot of times that'll trigger those fish to bite if I get it in the right zone. There he is. I think I've got down below the blacks. There's a nice white. I started out catching the black crappie, and they were up top, and the white crappie are down below them. So that probably is part of the reasons why that I'm catching the white crappie, because I'm going deeper. Got him. Another white crappie. I'm going to the 12, 14 count now, and so far every one that I've caught's been white down below in the deeper part. I want to see if I can't pick off a shallow fish by trying to keep it up a little higher. I've already spooked them. If I don't get bit, I'll go back to the deep count. I hit it there, I missed it. This is where you got to become a line watcher. If you watch that line just slack up, I just missed one right there. A lot of times that's all it takes. A little slack of the line, it's the fisher coming up behind it and pushing it forward. There. Oh. That one actually hit it pretty hard. That one just slacked my line up. I didn't set the hook in time on him. That's where this high vis line comes into play. You gotta watch that line. There's one just it either just swam by it or just barely did hit it. It just slacked it up. It didn't do any more than just slacked it up a little bit. Well, I'm not the pioneer of dock shooting, but we had a guy that was pretty much dominating the crappie tournaments around this lake for almost 2 years, and finally somebody spotted him and seen that he was skipping his jigs back underneath the docks. And back then nobody did it, and so you had probably the monopoly on all these fish that wasn't being bothered. And so, but over the period of the last 15 years, you know, this has been a technique that will provide with a lot of fish. I mean, I've caught a lot of fish on just dock shooting, but it's just another way to fish for crappie. The deal is about dock fishing is, you know, you got to be courteous around docks. People own these docks, and you know, I try, if I got somebody down on the dock, I won't fish it. I build a lot of brush, so I know how much it hurts to watch somebody fishing one of my brush piles. So anyway, the deal is that dock shooting on our lake is a major fish catching system, because we have anywhere from docks that's 2 foot deep to docks that's sitting over 100 foot of water. And docks sitting over 100 foot of water can have crappie under them. You know, they basically what they do is they use the docks for structure. It is another piece of structure, and they're pretty sensitive to light. So, you know, if they want to be in 2 foot of water, they can come right up underneath the dock and not be bothered by the light. So that's a lot of why they do it. Now that one there is right to the back, right by the last hose, so it's as far as I can go without going over a hose. And we're sitting in 26 foot of water here, so, you know, I'm not going to hit bottom unless they get something tied to the dock. There he is. Not a very good one, but still crappie. It's a keeper size, probably 9.5. Right there, that's how far back they are, but that's crappie right there. Let me zoom it in a little bit. You can see the crappie now. They're back in there a ways. There he is. Right where he said he was. Pretty decent fish. Now we gotta go back in. That's how good this electronics are. I mean, it told me how deep they were and how far back in they were. There's about 20 foot under that dock and probably about 6, 8 foot deep. Trick is getting it in there. Little guy. Gotta have the little ones because they'll turn into big ones one day. You know, I'll give you the kind of the lessons that I teach people is I always try to bring that jig somewhere near this eye or maybe down a little bit, you know, and you try to do it consistently, okay? And so a lot of times what I do, I'll kind of let that thing start swinging and kind of get it where I think I want it, and then I'll just catch it with the palm of my hand, and then yeah, this is a big question. Everybody says, do you ever get that hook stuck in your finger? I said, I've done it once. So what you do is you want to make sure and get that by the head, and you hold it with your thumb and your index finger in between them and turn the hook up, all right? I like to use these long rods with these long handles. And the reason I like that long handle is I can lock that thing solid. And if you're ever was a bow shooter where you shot instinctively, you learn to get an anchoring point. And so that's the same thing that I do with this long rod and this long handle, is I lock it up underneath my elbow, and that keeps it from being floppy like that, you know, and kind of losing your control. So by doing this, you know, I've got a good solid hold on it, and from that point on, you know, it's just a release thing and let her fly. Most people won't be able to get it real quick, so I suggest that you go out in the garage and just practice it till it kind of feels more like a bicycle thing, where you just automatically, you can just automatically pull it back and release it, and it'll go in the direction you want it to go. After you get to a point where it's just natural, where it's not something you're trying to think that you got to do this and you got to do that, you know, but when it becomes natural, then you start working on your power and then your accuracy. And once you develop the power and the accuracy, you pretty much got it. And it's all about like skipping rocks. You know, the lower you get your shot release, the farther in you get it on top of the water, but whenever you get it in there ways, you want it to hit that water and just skip. You don't want it to dive into it because it'll kill your jig a lot of times from going any farther. That one's probably just about perfectly placed to where I wanted it. Whether I catch a fish or not, beside the point, but it went where I wanted it to go. There you go, and I missed him. I don't know if there's anything very far out or not, so I'm just going to load up and do it again. Most of the time I just don't jack with it. I just go ahead and try to get it where I think they're at. And my electronics said that they're back in there a little ways. So I'm just going to depend on that and go for it again. Boy, that was a slight little lick is all that was. They got the best of me on that one. I had one lick it and one caught it whenever I pulled it away from it, and he had it, and by the time I felt him, he just released it. That's a pretty good shot right there. All right, this time keep an eye on that line. That arch of that line, it just slacked up just a little bit, and I just set the hook when that thing slacks up. And it could have just been a fish swimming by it and not even eating it. It just might have took the, kind of like saying taking the air off of it. That's all it did. Yeah, I may have spooked those fish. I'm gonna try a little slot on this right side of that hoist and see if I can get it in there. As long as I'm not over a hose, I'm in there. Oh, little guy. He hit it hard. Another nice black. Whoop, back here. Pretty fish, aren't they?